Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the VHS Boys podcast. My name is Gary, and I'm here with a man who needs no introduction, Russ Steppen. Or as I like to call him, Sus Reppin', because I'm often not sure whose side he's on.
That's fair. I also don't know whose side I'm on. Only my own, Gary.
Yeah.
Hey, you! What are you doing down there? I'm just looking for my mask!
All that is about to change. Because Stanley Ipkiss is not the man he used to be. Smoking! The Mask.
The Mask was directed by Charles Russell, who is best known for Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, as well as the 80s remake of The Blob and the Arnold Schwarzenegger-fronted action film Eraser. He also directed the Mummy spin-off The Scorpion King. The source material for The Mask was a violent indie comic book published by Dark Horse Comics, and Charles Russell was originally hired because New Line thought his experience on Nightmare on Elm Street 3 would prepare him to direct a dark, gory, effects-centered film. Just somewhere in development, the direction of the film changed completely, and The Mask became a very broad PG-13 comedy.
Right.
And that's basically how Hollywood works. They take something quirky and unique like Spawn or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Tank Girl for that matter.
Sure.
And then they just kind of grind it down into pulp, add fillers, and reshape and reprocess the creative until it's completely unrecognizable. And your very special thing is now just the same as everything else.
Yeah.
Your veal cutlet is now a hot dog.
Somebody stop me!
The Mask was released on July 29th, 1994 by New Line Cinema and became a critical and commercial success. The film grossed over $351 million on a budget of $18 to $23 million,
Okay.
which made it the most profitable film based on a comic book up to that point.
Oh, okay.
Even more so than Batman. The Mask cemented Jim Carrey's reputation as a leading man.
Yep.
He was nominated for a Golden Globe, and the film was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, but it lost to Forrest Gump.
Oh, that makes sense. Forrest Gump's pretty good. They did some groundbreaking stuff for Forrest.
They did do some groundbreaking
That's not
effects.
to say they didn't do groundbreaking stuff for this movie as well.
Did they?
I feel like they did. You hadn't seen things like that yet.
No, you haven't seen things like that done digitally yet, but you have seen things just like that in Roger Rabbit and other films.
Right.
It's really nothing new that you've
Sure.
seen. It's just like done digitally this time.
Right. Which was, again, a new foray into a technology.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about it is
like
the team who made the effects on The Mask, they just did a Jurassic Park. So it's kind of funny to go from like a realistic dinosaur to like 2D eyes bulging out.
We're 3D eyes and a
Yeah, they are 3D,
3D,
I guess,
heart
yeah.
that pumps out of his chest. I feel like what was most impressive about the effects in this movie was the way they were able to change from was their ability to change the thing you're looking at into then the cartoon. Like that blend was something that hadn't been done. It's either when you're watching the shot, this is the effect like a dinosaur. If it's CG, it's a CG dinosaur the entire time. Whereas in The Mask, Jim Carrey will doing a thing, and then he switches to a cartoon, partway through, and then his now real shirt becomes a fake shirt that's pumping a heart and stuff. And so it was a better blend than they had kind of done in the past. The Mask itself was prosthetic. He had fake teeth. It took like 3 hours to put the head on.
Yeah.
The teeth were actually never really supposed to be used. They were for like close-ups and stuff when he's not talking or just smiling. But Jim learned to speak with the teeth so that the character was just over the top the entire time.
Yeah.
But and that's neither here nor there. The Mask, it looks good. The movie looks good.
Yeah, no, the mix of the practical effects with the digital effects works well because he's wearing a practical mask. If it was just a CG character fully, I don't think it would work as well.
Oh, and then in '94, that would not have looked good at all.
Yeah.
It would have.
So yeah, the effects are definitely effective. I don't have a problem with the effects. The Mask was Cameron Diaz's first feature film and launched her into stardom. Cameron Diaz became the definition of a Hollywood it girl in the 90s.
Sure.
And The Mask also influenced the resurgence of swing music in the 1990s.
I would say yes, but also no. I feel like late 80s, there was a big movement in Sweden, a big revival of swing and Lindy Hop dance. And that was because they found a big collection of old films of Lindy Hop and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
And this did start like a big movement in Sweden and Europe. People would come to this dance camp, which was famous across Europe, and really started doing some things. A lot of the big band music that exists today is still in Germany. They're like German people singing like these old 40s American classics. But that's to say that eventually would become global. And yes, by the late 90s, I mean, this was kind of the first time where we were really seeing zoot suits again, and like, you know, the big band swinging trumpets and whatnot. And by the late 90s, by 97, I think we were heating on the radio. And by 99, you had Big Bad Voodoo Daddy playing at the Super Bowl even.
Yeah, no, it's not for me. I don't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it in the film. But, you know, The Mask is an extremely influential film for 1994. This was a huge thing.
Right.
I remember as a kid just seeing ads for this. And everyone talking about The Mask. I don't think I ever saw it until much later. So I don't really have nostalgia for it.
My babysitter had it on VHS, so we watched that like so many times. And watching it as an adult, I'm like, it was a little more raunchy than I had realized as a kid. It's actually, the whole movie's just very sexually fueled, like...
Yeah, there's some things they kind of snuck in there that seem a little bit inappropriate for a PG-13 comedy, and despite that, it's still super bland.
Right.
It's still a very bland PG-13 comedy.
And interesting, I mean, you brought up the fact that it was based on a pretty violent comic, right?
Yeah, a very violent comic.
Because the character in The Mask, the comic, he does kill people with cartoon antics, but he kills them rather than like...
Yeah, there's like full gore and blood and stuff.
Right. In the comic book, though, I feel like The Mask does... I mean, there's the one guy, but it goes to different people. It's not just the one guy.
Yeah, I think it originally starts as Stanley Ipkiss, and then it eventually goes to the Detective Calloway.
Oh, is that right?
No, it becomes his girlfriend at one point, so it does jump around for different people. The whole point of The Mask is that like it makes the person who wears it go crazy, and they end up dying usually, and then the mask transfers to another person.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot darker. Yeah.
That's way darker. Yeah, that is not this movie.
Despite being a huge blockbuster and culturally influential film, I did not enjoy The Mask. Watching this now, I don't think it holds up. The characters are boring, the writing is bad, the plot is generally pretty cookie cutter and full of cliches. The music and dancing is annoying. The whole thing just feels like a mess of like loud noise and like shitty one-liners.
It really does.
There's very little substance in this movie.
Except, I mean, sexy Cameron Diaz. If that's not substance, I don't know what is, Gary.
Yeah, they do really utilize Cameron Diaz as a sexual prop. I really hate the one-liners in this movie. They're just so bad.
I heard Carey improv'd a lot of his things when he was The Mask. You know, because he's a goofy guy and he's a cartoon, literal cartoon. The
Stanley Ipkiss character is boring and not very sympathetic. The Mask as a character is also boring and kind of generic. The Mask does hacky impressions that you've seen a million times, and he recreates gags from old cartoons. The whole thing is kind of lame, and this character represents self-proclaimed nice guy Stanley Ipkiss's deepest desires.
Right.
So there's a huge irony to the fact that Stanley sees himself as this nice guy, quote unquote, but deep down he's a violent, sexually over-aggressive criminal. So I'm giving The Mask 1 star.
1 star?
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought this would be fun to watch, and it was like a chore to get through. It was not very good.
I will say, I mentioned that I liked it growing up. I watched it maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, just be like, oh man, The Mask, I'm finally able to watch this again. I was kind of disappointed as well.
Yeah.
But upon watching it again, more recently for this podcast, I was able to forgive some things for whatever reason. I was like, all right, I'm going to watch it with some fresh, clean slate eyes, not try to put anything what I remember or what I think it should be. And yeah, it's kind of whatever. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It's either a take it or pass. If you like Jim Carrey, sure.
Yeah, I like Jim Carrey, and like it's not really that his acting is bad. It's just this is such an unremarkable role for him. It's my least favorite Jim Carrey movie of 1994.
Okay, out of Ventura and
yeah. The other two are much better.
Sure, I would have to agree.
If you do for some reason want to watch The Mask, it's free on Tubi. I think it's also free on YouTube. which is pretty
With
cool.
ads,
There's a
yeah.
lot of free old movies now on YouTube. I just saw that King of Comedy's on there.
Oh, right on.
A lot of cool stuff, so you can watch movies for free on YouTube now. Jim Carrey plays Stanley Ipkiss, a sad sack bank teller and self-proclaimed nice guy. Stanley Ipkiss is less of a character and more of a lazy combination of 90s cliches and character attributes. He's kind of a man-child. He's not full-on Pee Wee Herman level. He has a Jack Russell Terrier. He still watches cartoons.
Yes.
Kind of a meek character in the world of Edge City, which, of course, Edge City, the fictional location of the film, is a metropolis where no one ever comes. Every citizen of Edge City is fully erect and constantly at the point of orgasm, but completely unable to climax.
Oof.
And that explains their aggressive nature
Sure.
and all the big band music. You know? The late Richard Jeni appears in a supporting role as Stanley's friend and coworker Charlie Shoemaker. It's nice to see Richard Jeni in a movie, but kind of weird casting choice. Jim Carrey and Richard Jeni have virtually no chemistry together.
But you know what you need? You need a little change of pace. Tonight, I'm going to take you on a love safari, deep into the darkest heart of the urban jungle.
One day at the bank, Stanley meets the lovely Tina Carlisle, played by Cameron Diaz. Tina is a nightclub singer and girlfriend of the film's antagonist, Dorian Tyrell, who's kind of a cliche 90s mafia type, played by Peter Green. Peter Green you might recognize as Zed from Pulp Fiction, the biker who anally rapes Ving Rhames in the basement of the pawn shop.
Oh, not the Gimp. The other guy.
No, not the Gimp, Zed.
Oh, okay.
When Tina shows up to the bank, Cameron Diaz is introduced in a shot that pans up her leg to a close-up of her breasts, all while Charlie and Stanley make boner faces as the camera dollies in and zooms out. It's very 90s. And there is a gag where Charlie sniffs her jacket.
Yeah. Because she's a woman who smells good, I guess.
He's so attracted to her, he wants to smell her titty sweat or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tina is at the bank pretending she's interested in opening an account, but she's really there to do reconnaissance for her boyfriend who's planning to rob the bank.
Uh-oh.
And because this is 1994, her idea of a spy camera is bringing a purse with a hole for a camcorder lens.
Yeah, just stick it out there.
Yeah. I guess she figures no one will hear the rolling tape in her purse.
She's probably recording to like high 8.
Yeah.
1994, yeah.
That night after work, Stanley attempts to go meet women at the Coco Bongo nightclub with Charlie. And he's embarrassed, first when he's denied entrance to the club, and second when Tina sees him driving a decrepit loaner car that his mechanics stuck him with.
Right.
It's all pretty cliche, prototypical 90s loser shit. It's like, oh, his job's not good. His car's not good. He can't get any pussy.
Yeah. Dude, that describes a loser to me.
Yeah, right?
I wish my car was better, Gary.
I know, right? There's a very cliche moment where a car drives through a puddle and sprays Ipkiss to visualize how downtrodden he is.
Wetness. You got wet clothes because...
Just cliche after cliche, like nothing original in this fucking movie.
Hey, it's a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
It's a comic. It's a cartoon. He is a cartoon.
Next, Stanley's loaner car breaks down and he discovers the ancient relic that will transform him into the titular character of The Mask. The titular character of the film, not to be confused with the tit character Tina Carlisle, played by Cameron Diaz. When Stanley Ipkiss wears the mask, he becomes a super enhanced but also less inhibited version of himself, and because he's a horny and sexually repressed man-child, he takes on the persona similar to the wolf from the Tex Avery cartoons.
Right.
And with the newfound confidence of a date rapist, Stanley Ipkiss rampages through Edge City, antagonizing people with his ILM computer-generated cartoon gags.
Sure. Swirling around like a tornado Tasmanian devil.
Also, I can't help but wonder, like, what are the racial implications of the zoot suit? Is Stanley Ipkiss doing a cartoon version of blackface when he transforms into the mask?
Was the wolf a...
That's another thing I was wondering. Is the wolf, is that like a racist cartoon? Because white people weren't known for wearing zoot suits. I mean, I guess Italians were.
Sure, okay.
Which weren't considered white in the 40s.
Right.
So it's really not it's really like an ethnic thing to wear a zoot suit.
Yeah, maybe it's just being Italian, Gary.
Yeah. There's a scene where the mask makes a Tommy gun out of a balloon, and this scene also...
Oh, another Italian weapon.
Tommy gun?
Yeah. The mobs were always using those.
Yeah, I guess so. So yeah, in the scene where the mask makes a Tommy gun out of a balloon, there's also a gag where he pulls a loose condom from his pocket. Mm-hmm. The condom feels kind of out of place, But at least something memorable happens. It's actually an ancient Norse condom that when you put on your genitals, transforms your penis into a Woody the Woodpecker-like animated character.
Wow.
And then you have a penis that can rob banks and do impressions of Jimmy Stewart. Yeah.
That's good. Too bad you can't come still.
No, still no cum allowed.
Still no
This
cum.
is Edge City.
Yeah, the condom is just for protection, not for pregnancy,
Yeah. The Mask assaults the mechanics who gave Stanley the faulty loaner car. Mm-hmm. And the film implies that he shoves mufflers up their asses.
I don't know if it's implied, Gary. They come out with mufflers sticking out of their asses.
They do.
Like, really deep into their asses.
Yeah. I hope he had some more condoms.
Oh, just the sharp edge of a muffler just gives me the willies.
Yeah.
Thinking about jamming it up someone's ass, especially as quick as like a Bugs Bunny character might do it. He's not
Shoving it right up
He's
there.
not going to lube it up. He's just going to swirl around like Tasmanian Devil and slam it straight into your butthole.
Yeah. I hope the mechanics had cartoon buttholes that were a little bit more elastic and forgiving.
Flexible.
Yeah.
That's all, folks.
Like, I'm sure the Mask's butthole would be fine. You could
Oh,
shove
yeah.
whatever up there. And
He
it's
could,
just,
he could put a whole boat up his ass.
yeah. It's like the vignette at the end of the Looney Tunes cartoon. It gets bigger and smaller as you need.
As a pig jumps out and gives you the thumbs up and comes back in.
Those are probably the only two funny moments in The Mask. It's the condom and the guys getting the mufflers shoved up their asses. Stanley goes to the Coco Bongo nightclub, and this time as The Mask, he has the confidence to dance with Tina. And there's a whole extended dance number. I did not enjoy the music and dance numbers in The Mask.
Hey, Pachuco! 4-3! No, you don't like that? It's one of the
No.
most memorable parts of The Mask.
Apparently. The Mask robs the bank that Stanley works at, putting him in conflict with the film's antagonist, Dorian Tyrell.
Ooh, and Dorian's kind of in trouble. Have we talked about? Are you going to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. No, not really. Yeah, there's a conflict between Dorian and the other mob guy.
Yeah, there's like a bigger mob guy, and I only bring it up because as a kid, I remember this scene being pretty dark. Like, Dorian goes in, and the bigger mob guy's like, fuck you, Dorian, and he puts like a golf tee in his mouth, and he like golfs off his face. And actually, I'm only bringing it up because they actually got a real golfer to golf off of this guy's mouth.
Oh, okay.
That's scary as hell.
Sure.
And his scream in the movie is actually that he didn't actually get injured, but he yelped because it's scary to get a golf ball knocked out your mouth.
Jim Carrey has a scene with Ben Stein. Stanley Ipkiss consults Dr. Arthur Newman, a psychiatrist who has recently published a metaphorical book on masks. Yeah, I guess boomers kind of know him from Ferris Bueller and all those roles. I feel like our generation probably knows him more from the Clear Eyes commercials.
Wow. Are you too stoned to go to work? Clear eyes.
Isn't that what Clear Eyes is for? It's like for people who smoke weed. Why the fuck was Ben Stein advertising that?
Because he's stoned all the time?
Yeah. Tina asks Stanley to set her up with the mask, so Stanley meets Tina at Landfill Park, which again is like part of the dystopian element of the mask.
Right. That's funny. It's a funny idea. You're in a city, they say landfill park, and it's a
Yeah.
nice public park.
The park is actually a landfill
Yeah,
for
yeah.
garbage.
Funny.
Funny. It's funny stuff.
That's a comedy gold.
And at Landfill Park, Stanley transforms into the mask, and this time he goes way beyond being like overtly sexually aggressive, and he's just a French guy now.
Yeah, right. He's just trying to molest you while he's French.
He goes from being the Tex Avery wolf to being Pepe Le Pew.
Right. Exactly. In fact, exactly. I feel like that was the inspiration. He's like,
I'm
first
sure
he's
it
Bugs
is.
Bunny, then he's the wolf, and now he's Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah.
And he's gonna...
It's actually kind of a funny joke to be like, French people are just basically rapists. Like,
Ooh la la, I don't care what you say. No does not mean no in
yeah,
my language.
there's no word for no in the French language. And then like he makes some surprisingly graphic innuendos. He talks about like spreading her pate.
Yeah, foie gras or whatever. Yeah. He's gonna do some raunchy French things.
I guess they could sneak that in because it's French.
I'm going to butter your escargot.
Again, it's probably like the only funny thing that happens in this fucking movie.
I will reveal my croissant. I will spread your pâté. I will dip my ladle in your VHS walls.
Yeah, definitely a weird scene. Made me feel uncomfortable watching it as an adult. I don't know if I registered as a kid.
Yeah, I guess it hasn't aged very well because
Right.
he's the good guy and he's being very rapey. Detective Kellaway shows up on the tail of the mask, and Stanley flees with reporter Peggy Brandt, who becomes like a second love interest in the film. And this leads us to the infamous Cuban Pete sequence, where the mask performs a song from the Desi Arnaz classic Cuban Pete. I guess a lot of people enjoy this scene. I did not.
It's really long and weird.
It's really long, and it's
very memorable. It's one of the things people remember from The Mask.
Is it?
Yeah, Cuban Pete. It's like it shares way too much screen time.
Yeah.
And I read producers didn't like the sequence and they wanted it shortened or cut, and it probably could have, but
yeah, and it's also like The Mask is just omnipowerful. He's just God. If he can just do anything and make people dance, and it's just like
you'll be part of his dance number if you're not careful. He's going to take over your brain and take over your mouth, and you're going to sing and dance and perform fellatio, even though he never comes.
Yeah. Next, Peggy Brandt betrays Stanley, which is actually kind of an interesting plot twist in an otherwise just completely cookie cutter film. They set her up to be like the more sincere, down to earth character, as opposed to the unattainable Tina.
Sure. And
so you think she's going to be the love interest,
right?
And then they just kind of thwart your expectations and have her turn on Stanley,
which works.
Yeah,
script wise, I was fine with that.
Yeah, and then Tyrell takes possession of the mask, and being that the mask is an extension of the wearer's personality, Dorian becomes a more sinister character, or at least seemingly.
Right.
And that setup kind of makes sense, but all he does is like similar dumb cartoon gags, like spitting out bullets and stuff.
Yeah, he gets the powers of the mask, but he just becomes a cartoon. He doesn't look as big-toothed and happy. He's like...
It's like a monster.
He's like the Hulk meets Ray Liotta, and that's it. Yeah. Right? Just big square jaw.
Well, also, apparently, Dorian Tyrell really wanted to bulk up, and he was just unable to. So, like, when he's the fantasy version of himself, he's very jacked.
Oh, is that right?
I don't know, I guess, right? Like,
sure.
The Mask didn't get buff all of a sudden, but Dorian Tyrell does. The big finale of The Mask takes place yet again at the Coco Bongo nightclub. There are very limited locations in this movie.
They had Stanley's apartment, the bank. I heard they shot the bank in one day. They shot everything in the bank, got it done. So, kudos to them for having limited scenes and being able to do it. But yeah, we spent a lot of time in Coco Bongo Club.
And then a very cartoonish IED is introduced into the film. It's like a real...
IUD?
IED.
What's that?
Improvised explosive device.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a term?
Yeah. You've never heard that?
No, and that just means like something you made to explode, or...
Yeah, it's just a bomb that's like not like a manufactured bomb. It's all very cliche. Tina is kidnapped by Dorian, and the whole thing kind of plays out like you'd expect.
And Dorian's evil, and he's an evil bad guy in the 90s, so he's got a big CG tongue that wants to lick at you.
Very Freddy Krueger-like, right?
Yeah, sure. And what was that other movie we watched not too long ago? Where I watched Super Mario Bros. The movie, the original. And yeah, Koopa also does a thing. He's like, oh, there's a lady. He's got like a long CG tongue, and that, I don't know. That's supposed to be gross because he's got a long tongue and it's gonna be inside your mouth or inside you other ways. I feel like that's a woman's fantasy,
right? Like she's like, oh my god, your tongue is huge. Eat my pussy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Earth Girls. Eat my pussy and my ass.
Have you seen Earth Girls Are Easy? Yeah, Earth Girls Are Easy.
No, I don't think I have seen
with
that.
Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans, and Jeff Goldblum. They all play aliens. And who's the chick from Beetlejuice? Not.
Oh, Gina Gershon?
Yes, she's the love interest. But anyway, they're aliens from space. And at one point, Jim Carrey has a super long tongue. He's getting like fishing ice out of the bottom of a long glass, and all the ladies are really about it. So that's just to say, this is a gag that isn't new, but it shouldn't. I don't know why it's bad, because they're bad guys, I guess. You don't want to be kissed. You don't want to be ate out by a long tongue.
Yeah, it's you know what it is, Russ? It's more of the male gaze. It's like, ew, why would a girl want to date a guy whose fucking tongue makes her come like crazy? That's gross.
Right.
You know, they just can't see it from the perspective of the female.
Understandable.
Tina tricks Tyrell into removing the mask, which is then recovered and donned by Milo.
She does this by being like, I want a real kiss from the real Tyrell and not a gross long tongue kiss by the Hulk version.
Yeah. It's
playing
interesting.
Playing into that male's, ego, right?
Sure.
He's like, oh, I have to take off my mask because fucking no reason. Why did he have to take out? Why did he take out
this girl before he kills her? It's fucking stupid.
Just kill her, dude. or like kiss her as the mask. Like, who cares? Like, you're gonna kill her.
Yeah, you're the mask. You're supposed to be a rapist. What do you care what she feels?
That's what you do.
Yeah. So Stanley retrieves the mask and uses its powers to swallow the bomb.
Wait, you passed my favorite part, Gary.
With the dog?
The dog.
No, I said it. You passed it.
I passed it.
Yeah.
Well,
Why, what would you like about the dog scene?
that was my favorite part as a kid. When the dog Milo, he's for whatever reason, he's at the Coco Bongo Club too, and
I guess he was in the car.
he was in the car with the cop or something. It doesn't matter. He gets out.
Also,
and
the dog acting in this movie,
Oh,
fucking top
dude,
notch. This dog was great.
this dog does so many things.
Yeah.
Like,
is it one dog? Do you know?
it is one dog. It was one dog, and
This dog will be like doing double takes. Like, it's really good at
really, really good acting. They have him at one point. He's hanging off a doorknob. The dog is literally bit onto a doorknob and hanging off it, and Stanley has to go over and pick him off the doorknob and put him elsewhere. That's incredible. Like,
it's really impressive dog acting. Also, the Jack Russell Terrier was a real trope of the 90s. I don't know why it was like,
everybody had one or something?
I think like Little Rascals.
Oh, okay.
Pee Wee Herman, Ernest like they all had Jack Russell Terriers.
It might be that they're a good animal to train.
It's a good actor dog.
Yeah,
I figured that might be part of it.
It would have to be.
Just seems like it's a trend because now it's not the thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, now it's a CG dog. You're not going to have a real dog.
Well, even if they have a dog in a movie, they're not going to pick a Jack Russell Terrier.
Sure.
Stanley retrieves the mask, uses its power to swallow the bomb seconds before it detonates, and then flushes Tyrell down the drain of the club's ornamental fountain.
by painting a handle or something? By painting a flusher?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, again, another cartoon
Very
gag.
Convenient.
He can do whatever because he's got the powers.
He is God.
Yeah, he can draw a toilet handle and make something in a room turn into a toilet that flushes someone to somewhere.
Yeah.
What do you think happened to Tyrell? Do you think he ended up in a too tiny a pipe?
Yeah, it's like, it starts off as a really kind of lighthearted gag. Oh, he's getting flushed in. But how it ends is he drowns in the water and dies.
Yeah.
So it's a really dark.
In the Coco Bongo Club.
It's a really terrible death, actually. It seems funny on the surface.
But
the reality of the situation is
drowning in a toilet?
His lungs fill with water until he asphyxiates.
Mm-hmm. Not funny.
The police arrive and attempt to arrest Stanley, but the mayor intervenes, implicating Tyrell as the mask and praising Stanley as a hero. Mm-hmm. And the following day, Stanley returns to the harbor bridge with Tina, and Tina throws...
And his buddy.
Yeah, and his buddy Charlie is there, and the dog.
And the dog, yeah.
Tina throws the mask into the water before she and Stanley share a kiss, and Charlie tries to retrieve the mask for himself, only for Milo to swim away with it. And that apparently was a reshoot. The audience didn't like Charlie getting the mask.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
Poor
no.
Richard Jeni, man.
Oh, no. He got the mask, and they were like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
His friend's such a loser. I wish the dog got it instead.
Well, I don't think there was ever a plan to make a sequel with Richard Jeni, but it's like, talk about being so close to being in a huge movie, like starring in a huge movie sequel.
You're like the friend.
And then they do a fucking focus group, and it's like, fuck this guy. This jacket sniffing weirdo. I don't want to see him become the mask.
They couldn't cut the jacket sniffing? Make him more likable?
I don't know.
I'm
just kind of speculating. I don't know exactly what happened.
Right. Hey, man, test audiences, they can make or break a film. I
mean, if you want to make a movie better, more test audiences. And
Is that really, you think?
No, I think they're probably bad because test audiences are probably kind of retarded.
They're just
probably they're going to the Midwest and getting people who are like free during the middle of the day. It's like,
right. I didn't like the part when
this movie was mean.
Yeah.
Why's he gotta be so mean?
What if he stuck a muffler up the guy's ass? All right, reshoot.
So I know a lot of people love The Mask, but I am not one of them.
Mm-hmm. And so
very much looking forward to finishing this podcast so I never have to watch or talk about this fucking abortion of a movie again.
Wow. Smoking.